morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's Bambuddha Boost. My name is Anna Shepherd, and I'm the founder and CEO of Bambuddha Group. We're an all-inclusive leadership network, and we do coaching, training, and lots of good stuff. And at the moment, we're doing a boost every morning at 10 a.m. to keep our members and wider community engaged, inspired, with lots of leadership tips. We're really lucky today to have Dr. Dimity Podger in the house. She's not breaking free this morning, thank goodness. So we've got her all to ourselves for the next 20 minutes. Dimity is an absolute expert when it comes to the purpose-based consulting space, and she works with all kinds of businesses to help them build purpose for their teams and make sure the businesses are really successful as a result of that. So I'm going to do what I do best, and I'm going to disappear and hand you over to Dimity to give you lots of tips and advice this morning.
Thanks so much, Anna, for having me and Bambuddha Group. It's really great to be here with you all for a boost this morning on a topic that I love, meaning and purpose, and bringing more of that to our teams and organisations and to ourselves. Really important at this time. Thanks so much for dropping your responses in the chat to the question, what brings you meaning and purpose? So it's just so important to connect ourselves to what's purposeful and meaningful and be able to share that with our teams and to see how we can connect them as well to their own sense of meaning. Some answers here. So we had Esther, knowing that what I can do can make a positive difference to others. And Amanda, connection brings meaning, finding common ground. And Nikki, thanks, helping people find meaningful work. So what do you find meaningful? So thank you very much for dropping in the chat. There's a few of those as we go through our 15 minutes together to share some of our collective intelligence with one another and to engage ourselves in the conversation. So my company, Barasa, has been around since 2011. And I've been working in this kind of space of purpose and values for some time. I kind of kicked off as a sustainability educator to really bring those strong values around justice and equity and creating a better world for all as part of the work that I do. And I run kind of workshops around purpose and values for teams and organizations, and also individual work with leaders around this topic. So it's really great to be here. I wanted to kick off with this meaning and purpose. Why do we focus on it? And when is the right time at this time? What qualities do we need to take into making meaning with our teams? What qualities as a leader do we need to bring into those conversations? And also to share with you some practices, just some ideas and ways that you can use to reconnect your team with meaning and purpose. So those are kind of the three main topics. So I was really curious about this this paper from McKinsey and Company, and they published some really important work and some research around making sense of meaning and how it's integral to our recovery. That in times of crisis and trauma, we really do try to make meaning of it. That's something that we do as human beings, and it's actually one of our core dimensions of human motivation. We have 4 strong ones, and one of them is this connection to purpose bigger than the self. And something that we can do when we're making meaning in our teams is to really try and connect to that bigger picture. The other beautiful thing about connecting to meaning and purpose is that it activates our wonderful positive emotions when we find it, which is also extremely important to recovery and feeling engaged and alive. Some of you may have attended Chaim's talk Boost the other day, and she shared some of the research from Google's Aristotle project, where they looked at, well, what are the 5 key dynamics? What are the 5 key things that are really part of this high-performing team and effective teams within Google? And they identified these 5, and 2 of them really are around what's meaningful to us as individuals, but also what's the work that we do that has impact, that purpose that's outside of ourselves. So what's personally important to us and what's important to others. So as part of effective teams and high-performing teams, and for our own performance, connecting with what's meaningful to us and also getting a sense of what we're doing is having impact for others is really critical. And purposefulness is linked quite closely to both of those. And it's lovely to have Nikki on this call, her work and the work of Beaumont people into this area of meaningful work. You can check out their research on their website. They're doing meaningful work research, and this finding's really very striking. So the most important contributors to attaining meaningful work for individuals is around leadership. So having trust in your leaders, culture, and also this idea of purpose, connecting to purpose. And reward and pay is right down the bottom of what Australians identify as contributing to meaningful work. There's some other research that actually shows how important it is when we feel a sense of connection with our personal values and purpose, with the experience that we're having with work, with our organisations. And Bailey and Maddens identified these important elements, that we have higher levels of engagement, improved performance. We tend to have greater career development, job satisfaction, improved well-being. So bringing that connection with your teams, these are things that they can experience and look forward to. And there's another paper from Thomas Wright back in 2009 that meaning and associated well-being can really explain 25% of performance. So when we're needing to innovate and arise at this time of COVID through this crisis, really bringing forward our best selves at this time is so important. And so having conversations about meaning and purpose is really fundamental. I wanted to bring this research from McKinsey and Company as well, and how sensing our reality and where you're at and where your team's at is really important to identifying what kind of conversations they need around meaning and purpose. And as we move forward, moving from resolve, resilience to return, reimagination, reform, these are the types of things that our employees or we might be feeling, and then what they need. So what kinds of conversations can you be thinking of having as we're progressing through this cycle, as we're moving through a crisis and the life cycle of that crisis? So it's really quite interesting to look at this. So I was curious actually for you to drop in the chat, has your connection with meaning and purpose changed for your team over the past few months? This first image, I think, is this idea of, have we lost that sense of connection to meaning and purpose? This middle path, have we actually started to think about actually pivoting, or has our meaning and purpose actually shifted? What we find meaningful in our day may have shifted quite a lot. I know my work is really important to me, but I'm also finding a lot of meaning and purpose at the end of the day, where we can all have dinner together, which wasn't something that happened pre-COVID. And also this last picture about, are you actually seeing gaining perspective and gaining greater connection to a much bigger picture of purpose for your own self, and perhaps you're able to lead your teams in that way as well. So what's happening with your connection with meaning and purpose? So I wanted to ask also, let's just have a look. There's some ideas in the chat. Great to see everyone today. Nikki's comment, no, but it has been heightened, your sense, appreciating so much more the value of the work we do. Just placing one candidate now feels like $1 million. That's awesome. Esther, I am more consciously finding meaning and purpose and joy in nature and my family, as well as gratitude for my health. And we may have taken placing candidates for granted. That's interesting, Nikki. And greater value placed on a rich home life. Yeah, these things are really growing across. And what we're seeing is also a shifting in priorities of values, what's important to people and where they sit within their priorities. So based on what are the qualities will we need to lead and to draw on as we lead these conversations of reconnecting our teams with meaning and purpose, what they're finding meaningful now. So connecting conversation, reflective conversations, perhaps some retrospectives. What do we find meaningful in the past that we are now finding meaningful now and we want to take forward with us as we move into the future? What are the elements of gratitude? So what are some of the qualities? I'll go back. Yeah, so feeling calmer and more settled. And bringing that sense of calm to those conversations, a more settled sense into those conversations. Any other qualities that we'll need to draw on as we lead these kind of conversations within our teams and reconnect people to purpose and meaning? Presence, yeah. Creating space in those conversations for presence for self and with others. And authenticity, yeah, great. Thank you for sharing. So I wanted to share 3 practices, and this slide has a lot on it, and it's partly so that people can recreate or tweak or transfer into their own context. And I like the idea of retrospectives, and it's one of the first practices that I wanted to share with you in creating that sense of meaning and purpose in your teams, and that it is leading a conversation that holds up a mirror and is reflective, and we need empathy and holding perspectives with one another and to share authentically and to be able to bring that kind of environment to the people that we work with. So this retrospective is really about something that you can share individually and as a group, and having a clarity of those ground rules for the activity to start with. You might set aside 60 minutes and you might hold this as a Friday wrap up, as a reflection on a Friday afternoon or Friday morning, and explore these questions individually and share as a group. So what was meaning for you and us for this past week? Has anything shifted and changed? How can the next week bring greater a sense of meaning and connection? How connected do you feel to the purpose of your work? Why are you showing up? Is there a greater connection? Is there a distance? And how might you feel more purposeful in the next week? And with those kind of reflective on your own conversations as well as a group, what are the 1 to 3 planned actions you can take as a team, individually or as a group, to create more meaning and purpose the following week? It's amazing what can come up in these kind of open conversations, particularly when there's that deeper presence, calmness that you're talking about, and authenticity and a willingness to learn. And the other piece of that is how you're going to hold yourself accountable. What are you going to commit to? Is there a Slack channel that you can post your actions or your radar for the week, or maybe a thermometer that you might have as a team? The other practice I wanted to share with you is this giving of gratitude. And I wanted to share this idea of having a virtual wall of honour. So Seedbox is a kind of millennial new age tech company, and they acknowledge each other in a very heartfelt way. Pre-COVID was like a wall of honour in their office with months of the year, and really just expressing gratitude for people within the organisation. And one of the tips I would give you is maybe you could use Google Jamboard or Mural.co as a way of holding this wall of honour, of being able to express gratitude. And it might actually be gratitude that comes through from your customers that you could share with everybody in the organisation. Or it could be a wall of honour that's sharing ways that you've been living the values of your organisation. How do you honour the virtues of the people in your organisation? So things that you're grateful for, it's a really important practice, and this is a kind of an example of how you can do it as a team. Sean Aker talks about how important gratitude is to increase that social connection and sense of bond with one another. Really important for trust, really important at this time. it's a really important lever for increasing our positive emotions and sense of engagement in our teams. This is another way of giving gratitude and through value stories. And this is an example from Management 3.0. They're a company that really focuses on management and skills in management and team culture. And they use value stories, and they have a Slack channel with a hashtag values. And if you're sharing a value story, you include these 3 things. What was the value or virtue? How did they see the person demonstrate that really clear story, and why that's important to them? So it's really building that sense of community and bringing humanity into the team culture and creating a sense of what people find meaningful. If we think back to Beaumont's research about culture and purpose and really connecting people to one another, this is a really important practice that you can implement. The other, it's a little bit of a retrospective, but it's more about what you're moving towards, and as a team reflecting on the values, behaviours and virtues that are a challenge at this time is also really important, how to live them more fully. So for each one, you can map out what went well and why. So what happened in the context that enabled you to live those values and any improvements, as well as mapping what didn't go well and why and any improvements. You can use a this, not that way of mapping the behaviours, as well as we're moving from and moving towards, which is quite a positive and empowering approach to thinking about building greater alignment with the values of your organisation and the behaviours, and bring that sense of meaning. So we know that meaning, we have more meaning in our work when we feel a sense of alignment and resonance with the values of our organisation. So I'd like to finish with this, some ideas in the chat of how might we enhance meaning and purposefulness in a team context, and bring some of the collective wisdom from the group here into our conversation. Any ideas? What are you doing in your team that you'd like to share with others in the group? There's 11 of us here today. Real stories, communication. Following the tips 1, 2, and 3. That's great. Thank you, Anna. Okay, so some ideas there in the chat. We do a similar thing on Friday, but call it good news. So it finishes on a really good note. Also like your tips, Dimity. Thanks, Nikki. So what ideas will you take with you into your workplace? There's some ideas in the chat. And think about the tips that you're going to take, and perhaps tweaking the ones that are there and how you might implement those in your own team context. I'd really like to thank you for all being here, and thank you to Anna. If you'd like to connect with me, there's my email address and the website address. We're really excited to be able to offer workshops around values at this time, and can co-create with you ways that you can create more meaning and purpose in your teams and really connect with the values that really underpin what you're wanting to take into the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dimity. I think, having seen a lot of presentations now, the tips and advice that you've given there are just absolutely on the money, and
Thanks
really juicy stuff that people can take away and apply straight away. Does anybody have any questions before we call it a day today? No questions, just lots of love and thank yous. So I think you've just done an amazing job, and it really backed that up with a lot of research and facts, and that positive psychology side of things is so important right now to keep people going, and the gratitude. So thank you for reinforcing that and reminding people how important it is at the moment. Yeah, we love you. We're really glad to have you as a member, as a delivery partner. And if you are really happy to have more boosts, we've got another one tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. with Oksana. Oksana is one of our Game Changer members and delivery partners, and she's going to be telling us a little bit about her upbringing in Russia and telling us about a campaign she's launching called Small Things Matter. And then on Thursday, we've got Esther Coleman, who's going to be talking about getting into that core resilience with some top tips and advice. So have a good day today. Be kind to yourself and each other, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
See you later. Thank you so much.